Go to jail, Kevin Franke, especially after we just learned about this nonsense that you did to Sherry.
We've had this discussion and he says, I don't have any proof, solid proof of who did it.
Kevin Franke tells law enforcement that he wants Sherry Franke to be charged with burglary.
He hasn't reported to me that anything was stolen.
Kevin cut everyone in his family out of his life, including his own children, at the direction of Jody Hildebrand.
Jody is in the middle of all this.
Ruby and Kevin Franke from 8 Passengers are trying to find their way out of legal trouble. They are turning on their daughter, Sherry, and attempting to charge her with breaking and entering, and for allegedly stealing some evidence from her father. On top of that, the family lawyer is now shifting blame onto Ruby's business partner, Jody. He claims that she is dangerous and the reason for the kids' unfortunate situation. These former YouTubers are looking for any escape from accountability. So let's get into it. When it comes down to the 8 Passengers scandal, we can all agree that the mother, Ruby Franke, is an absolute monster. But the father, Kevin, has been an enabler, and now that Ruby is behind bars, he's taking her side and actually trying to turn on their eldest daughter, Sherry. I don't know why I was hoping that Kevin would switch up on Ruby and then kind of put the blame onto her, but no, he is standing by his woman and turning on their child, trying to file charges against Sherry for burglary and threatening to sue the police. Newly obtained police records outlined how some of Ruby Franke's children and family members were able to access her home after police served a warrant and broke down the front door. According to the police report, Ruby's husband Kevin, who admitted he hadn't been at the home for more than a year, wanted to file charges against his daughter, who went into the home and took some of the property. One can assume that, you know what, if he's going to file charges against his own daughter, she must have stole something very damning, something that she could use in court against them. At least that's what I assumed. But in fact, Sherry went back to go and get clothing, personal items, and a few other items for her 2 sisters. So she's not going there trying to gain, evidence or get something damning against her parents. She's trying to go get her own stuff. And yet her father is now accusing her of being a thief. There's one thing these children are not, and that are thieves. I mean, these kids essentially paid for their parents' lifestyles. If they did not have this YouTube channel, they wouldn't live in this big home or have multiple homes or disposable income. So really, these kids own everything, and the parents need a reality check. The caseworker working with these children informed police that they believed that Kevin might be at home and he may not be cooperative, which is why they brought police to the scene to issue this warrant. Everyone who was in the home were advised that they should not collect any items that were not their own. Yet Kevin wants to put his daughter behind bars for burglary. And the reason why Kevin is acting all dramatic is because he does believe there is some evidence in these personal items. Kevin reported that electronic items, specifically his electronic journals, were missing. He told officers he believes his oldest daughter, Sherry, is responsible due to a statement she made in court that day. I don't think Kevin's gonna get far when it comes to charging Sherry because she ended up bringing these items to the police department to pass along to her father. Among the items were 3 tablets, 3 cell phones, 3 camera GoPros, a stack of written journals, and 3 passports for Kevin, Ruby, and another one of their children. Ooh, passports. I wonder if Sherry took these passports so her parents can't flee if they had a chance.
Go to jail, Kevin Franke, especially after we just learned about this nonsense that you did to Sherry. After Ruby Franke got arrested, the cops executed a search warrant on her residence and they ultimately kicked down the door. While the door was broken down, Sherry Franke went into the residence to get personal items and clothing for her 2 sisters. She was also there with a member of Child and Family Services so they could get items for her 2 brothers. And now this is where the big old Kevin Franke can rock comes into play. Kevin Franke tells law enforcement that he wants Sherry Franke to be charged with burglary because she entered the home unlawfully. You know what, law enforcement? Thank you, because you told Kevin Franke that you were not going to initiate any charges and that this was a civil matter they needed to address. His lawyer did come out and say that Kevin and Sherry are actually trying to get along together for the betterment of his kids. You know what, Kevin? I don't believe a word you're saying or a word your attorney is saying. This is the type of person that you are. This is ridiculous. The fact that you were trying to initiate charges against Sherry for burglary because of things that what you and your wife did. Sherry, please fight your tail off to get custody of your siblings because you are the only bright light in this family.
It's also problematic because Sherry had been allowed in the home up until this point, and Kevin hasn't been there in over a year. So Sherry's not really much of a burglar if she's been given permission to go into that home whenever she wants. And it seems like Kevin's attorney, Randy, doesn't really like his statements because he put out some BS statement saying that Kevin and Sherry are working on their loving relationship and they are focusing on rebuilding their family, which isn't the case because Sherry is in fact going hard on her family and wants to see justice served.
To his knowledge, he hadn't lived there for 13 months, so he doesn't know what was there. You know, he hasn't told me that he saw anything missing other than some personal papers, but other than that, he hasn't reported to me that anything was stolen. We've had this discussion and he says, I don't have any proof, solid proof of who did it. All he knows is he's got to get it fixed again, and it was quite expensive.
Yeah, looks like a nice door.
You said it has to get fixed again. Was it broken prior to this?
No.
Oh, just
No.
get it fixed.
Get it fixed.
Yeah, okay.
Good. Jody is in the middle of all this, and I describe her as an onion with an octopus inside. The more layers you peel back about Jody's life and connections, every time you peel back a layer, an octopus tentacle comes springing out. There's a lot to be told. This is a fascinating and tragic event in their lives, and will probably have lifelong effects. It's gonna take him a long time to help these kids get through the trauma that's been perpetrated on them, but he's up to it, and he's dedicated to doing it.
So in my opinion, it seems like Ruby and Kevin are going to try to paint Jody as the evil person who manipulated these two parents into treating their children this way. And this case is going to go on. I mean, these two women are in jail still, and there's supposedly a ton of evidence for them to go through. So I'm interested in seeing how they're going to defend these kids. Another factor in this scandal that's pretty freaky is that the police had a hard time trying to find these children, specifically the two middle daughters. They were supposed to be at Ruby Frank's home, but they weren't there, and authorities couldn't locate the girls. They actually looked through the windows, they were knocking on the doors, they were determined to find these two children, and they weren't there. So they actually broke into the house and nobody was home. Sherry was on the scene, and she's been super cooperative when it comes to authorities because last year she cut ties with her family, and I believe she's the only one who's an adult. Maybe Chad is approaching that age, but she's the perfect person to stand up for her younger siblings. Over a year ago, in September 2022, Sherry asked the police to check on her younger siblings, whom she said had been left home alone for 5 days, and she wanted the police to make sure they had enough food. At that time, over a year ago, the police did respond, and it seemed like there were people there, but nobody answered the door.
I just obtained some new documents today from the Springville Police Department. They outlined how they were looking with DCFS for two of Ruby Franke's children on the day of her arrest, so the end of August. They ended up searching Ruby Franke's home in Springville after they received a warrant. They didn't find the children there. They did talk to a couple other family members, and they determined after looking at surveillance video from one of the child's place of employment that they were picked up by a woman named Pam Botcher. That is the third member of Connections classroom. They found the two children at Pam's house in American Fork, and then DCFS gave them the option either go in a foster family or stay with your oldest sister. So that would be Ruby's oldest daughter.
This Connections cult that Ruby and Jody head is actually pretty creepy because at first I thought it was just them two, but there are a lot of people involved. And essentially that's where those two girls were at. So I wonder if Jody or Ruby made a call for this woman to go and scoop up these girls to hide them from authorities. I mean, I don't think anyone who's involved in Connections should have any children that they are watching over.
Coming full circle here, Ruby's niece, Jessie Hildebrandt, told me in an interview almost a month ago that Pam was one of Jody's friends and was always around the house when Jody lived in Utah County.
Pam Botcher, when I was living with Jody, Pam Botcher was around. She was Jody's best friend. And I didn't realize that she was connected in this. I mean, I have very strong feelings towards Pam because of not that she was directly applying abuse, she wasn't actually involved, but she was one of the people that was constantly surveilling, the surveillance of
reporting back to Jody. She was always at the house just because she was friends with Jody, so it's sometimes a little murky. But wow, that's very disappointing, and I'm wondering why she's not being
why they're not talking about her.
I also question why Pam isn't locked up as well. I mean, the police did actually put her in handcuffs when they came to her home and were asking her about these children because, like, what's going on here, Pam? Like, did you kidnap these kids? But Pam told authorities that Ruby had asked her around noon to pick up the girls because of a family emergency. The woman added it was not an odd request to bring them to her home since the girls often would, like, hang out there and do chores at her home. So she's making these children put in work. And that's like a big part of like this like abuse cases, because these kids had like crazy amount of chores, like working out in the 100-degree heat and just like doing things that kids shouldn't be doing. But Ruby has this weird like mentality, this narrative that like kids need to be punished to hell. The caseworker spoke to the two girls and told them that they would be going to Sherry's, but the two girls expressed that they don't want to be at Sherry's. They would rather stay at Pam's, which I'm not entirely sure where they're coming from when they state this. I mean, partially I think that maybe like Ruby and Kevin like turned on Sherry back when Sherry turned on them like a year ago. So maybe like they have ingrained in the other kids' minds that like Sherry is a bad person. So they're scared to go Sherry and they'd rather stay with like one of their abusers, Pam.
Botchter told us that this was not unusual, as she had had blank and blank over to her residence before to do housework and other chores for her. Myself and the DCFS worker made contact with blank and blank, who were seated on the front porch of Botchter's residence. The DCFS worker introduced herself and informed the girls that she would be taking them to a residence to stay with their older sister, Sherry. Blank and blank expressed that they did not want to go with Sherry and that they would prefer to stay where they were. The DCFS worker informed the girls that because they are now in the state's custody, their only options were to stay with Sherry or to be placed with a foster family. The two girls reluctantly grabbed their personal belongings from inside Botchter's residence, which included a backpack and a cell phone. The DCFS worker informed them that she would need to collect the cell phone due to them being in the state's custody. Blank gave me the phone and I turned it over to the DCFS worker. So remember, all of this happened the day Ruby was arrested. So the article doesn't make mention about where the children are now and if they're still in Sherry's custody.
So the girls weren't happy, and I don't think I would be happy either. I mean, it's either Sherry's home, which she's been banished from the family, or foster care. So there's really no great choice in their eyes, especially if these people have convinced them that Sherry is some kind of evil. And I do think there's something sneaky going on between Ruby and Pam, and it's just weird that Ruby's calling her up, having her hide her kids from authorities, knowing that her children are in the state's care. It makes me feel like maybe allegedly the Connections is involved in some kind of like child trafficking.
A few weeks ago, we told you about a third member of Connections Classroom, which is Jody Hildebrandt's business. A woman named Pam Botcher was named along with Ruby Franke as Connections team members. On the day of Jody and Ruby's arrests, the two outstanding Franke children were found in Pam Botcher's care in American Fork. This was after police served a search warrant at Franke's home in Springville. They broke down the front door of the home after not getting an answer at the door. According to the police reports, Botcher told police that Ruby called her around noon citing a family emergency, and she asked if her two children could stay with her for a while. The two children wanted to stay with Botcher, but were ultimately placed in the care of Ruby's oldest daughter.
Because there is a big investigation going on, we're learning more and more about the 8 passengers family. Keep in mind that they are like super Mormon, and not saying that in a bad way, but they're just super Mormon, Midwest people, super Christian. They've got their faith and their values, which sometimes can make a person toxic, which kind of explains Connections. And Ruby and Kevin actually aren't together. They are technically, they are still married, but they've been separated for a little over a year, which is very much against their faith, and part of me believes that maybe they won't ever divorce just because it's so against their beliefs, so they're going to stick together when it comes down to this, even though Kevin is trying to present himself as a different type of parent and someone who's working on a closer relationship with his kids. While in fact, I believe he's been disconnected this entire time and allowing Ruby to do whatever she wants, exactly how they would act in their YouTube videos.
So Ruby had gone on a business trip with Jody and another counselor, and when she got back, she informed Kevin that his attitude was infesting the family and that they needed to get separated. Apparently, Jody believed that you had to break a marriage before you could fix a marriage. So eventually, Kevin moved out. He was still getting counseling from Jody, and he did take Chad with him. So when Kevin moved out, Chad was with him. However, Jody soon said that they were enabling one another and they needed to separate, so Chad moved out. So Kevin cut everyone in his family out of his life, including his own children, at the direction of Jody Hildebrandt. And he was not allowed to contact Ruby at all, and she was only allowed to contact him 3 to 4 times that year.
Why does Jody have a chokehold on these grown people and their relationships and their children? And even Kevin's lawyer, Randy, admits that these children have been manipulated. I don't know if he's talking about Ruby or Jody, but he's talking about one of them, and I think it's probably both. It does make me question the abilities that this Jody woman has. Like, it's giving very much like dictator, just abuser, mastermind. How is she able to convince these people that they are so broken and that she's the answer, that she can go and have counseling with Kevin, yet Ruby can't speak to him more than 3 or 4 times a year?
Kevin's sister-in-law had also done an interview where she claimed Sherry Franke had reached out to her father once she had heard he had left Ruby and he would not return her phone calls. So he chose to follow all of the directions of Jody Hildebrand and cut his children out of his life for 13 months. He has still not spoken to any of his children, and it has now been 14 months.
Part of the reason that I think this family got to this point was that they've been problematic for a very long time. But the internet did turn on them in 2020 because they started to call out how Ruby was a terrible parent, how these kids were exploited, and how it really just wasn't fair that they were making all of the money yet living these terrible lives, doing chores, and having unnecessary punishments. Keep in mind, that's what led Russell, their youngest son, to slip out of a window at Jody's home where his mother and younger sister Eve were, and to run to the neighbors asking for water and food. He had way too small shorts. He had sores pussing along his wrists and duct tape around his ankles. Like, how? Jody really found these people in a vulnerable place where everyone was turning against them. People were showing up to their doors at night with a mask on, threatening the family. They had no idea what to do. And for whatever reason, they thought that maybe Jody had the answers. And the answers involved these really young kids being strapped down, not being fed enough, not wearing proper clothing. And it really seems like Ruby is, I think, almost like too mentally ill. Like, she's too far gone to resume being a mother in any capacity. Not that she was a great mother anyways, but her children were in these conditions. She was living around it. And then now that she's in prison, some of her fellow inmates are listening in to her conversations and hearing what she's in for. And even they are taken back at how emotionless and just monster-like this woman is. I mean, you know, it's bad when the other prisoners are like judging you for how bad you are compared to everyone else.
There was a TikToker who was confirmed to share a cell with Ruby Franke. Supposedly, she overheard Ruby talking on the phone with her husband Kevin and her attorney. Cellmate overheard a phone conversation between Ruby and Kevin. They instructed their attorney to visit their residence and collect money in the house. When the attorney arrived, the money was nowhere to be found, causing Ruby to panic about being unable to pay him. Cellmate was supposedly surprised how emotionless Ruby was. She only teared up once and said that she missed her kids. Said that Ruby seemed more concerned with her own life than the lives of her children. Ruby was very worried about Jody and was trying desperately to catch glimpses of her. She spent a lot of times praying silently in her cell. Ruby told Kevin that it was ridiculous how nobody would listen to her about Russell needing to be kept away from other children. Ruby told Kevin that she wouldn't blame him if he refused to speak to her, considering the abuse and how she had forced him out of the house. Supposedly, Ruby's fame had allowed her special privileges in jail, such as pen and paper, which were not allowed because she was on a live watch. Ruby and Kevin spent time discussing flood damage repairs for their home, which was an odd concern considering the charges against her.
So Ruby is clearly not coping with this well, but I mean, she kind of deserves everything coming towards her. And I'm really glad that she's not out on bond or anything like that, because I do believe that she and Jody are so manipulative that they really could go and do even more damage. So we're definitely going to be interested in what this investigation pulls out during the discovery phase of this case. I want to hear what you guys think of everything in the comments below. Did you guys kind of see this coming when it comes down to the 8-passenger family? Because I mean, we all knew it was bad, but I didn't think we would ever actually see how bad it was. But let's go ahead and open this P.O. Box package item. It looks like it's from Making It Bearable, and they are located in Georgia. So let's go ahead and see what they had sent me. I'm going to be opening more P.O. Box package items here on the channel. I just went through like a little bit of a lull, but it is time to open your guys' letters. And I found, oh my gosh, I found a few in my storage unit from Florida. So I will be getting to those soon as well. Oh my gosh, stop. Oh my God, I cannot. Okay, let me open this letter first, because look at this bear. So first off, we have these cute little Making It Bearable cards. I love it. Dear Sloan, thank you for everything you bring to light on your videos and podcasts. I make memory foam teddy bears. Aw, cute. I also sew bears that look like people. When you were doing the Free Britney March, I was inspired to make a Britney bear. I am sending it to you as a thank you for inspiring me. Aw, but if you know someone who would like it, that's okay too. Oh, that's so sweet. Please don't let anyone stop you from being the sunlight in this sometimes dark world. Thank you so much. Oh my gosh. Making it bearable. Thank you for your small business shoutouts too. Yeah, I'll list everything below. P.S. Your Oprah video about her naming her son Candace. Oh, worship. Oh, I liked her. Oh, okay. Oh yeah, we're talking about how Oprah, like, her son's name is Canan. I can't even remember that, but I did that in my deep dive about Oprah back when I lived in Florida. Obviously, I am home right now, you guys can tell, and I got my eyebrows re-tattooed on yesterday, so they look really dark. I already know, but they'll get lighter. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. So there's a whole stand here for the bear to sit up. There's like a stand that you can like hook the, I don't know how this works, but there's a way, oh, like that, I guess. And you like put the bear inside of this thingy. But look at her. Wow, it's a Britney bear. Oh yeah, yeah. Oh, and she's smiling too. Cute. I know my dog would love to like tear her up, but these dogs are not getting near this. I love how it has, it reminds me of like Build-A-Bear, but like next level, like way next level. And I'm guessing you could just do custom, so like whatever people want, you can make them a bear. This is so cute. Thank you so much. Check out their shop. I'll list it below, and I'll see you guys in a new video soon. Oh yeah. Bye guys.